so today we're diving into a situation where it's kind of like, well, David versus Goliath. You know,
Oh, yeah.
this whole thing with the Eritrean regime, they just have this iron grip on everything media,
Yeah.
and especially the internet, like how hard it is for journalists over there
Mm-hmm.
to even try and report the truth. It's like, if you're listening to this show,
Right.
you're probably already kind of clued in that Eritrea, well, information doesn't exactly flow freely there.
Yeah, no, not at all. To give you a really solid picture of what's going on,
Yeah.
we've got a few key sources here. There are these reports that give a wide view of African media in general.
Right.
Then we have our own notes on Eritrean media specifically. Plus, we found these super insightful articles
Got it.
about, the fight for press freedom in Eritrea and the whole region around it.
Yeah.
All these together, they really show just how multi-layered and concerning the situation is.
That's complicated.
It is.
So what are we going to do with all this? What's the plan for this deep dive?
Our mission here is to untangle it all.
Oh.
We're going to pull out the most crucial stuff about how Eritrea's government basically chokes its media.
Right.
The crazy risks that journalists face just by doing their jobs, especially in this whole digital age.
Yeah.
And then the surprising ways that some are trying to break through. By the end, you'll get it, the core issues, without getting lost in the weeds.
No information overload.
Nope.
Okay, sounds good. So let's jump in. How does the Eritrean government actually set up and then keep this total control over the media?
Well, it all starts at the most basic level. Since the early 2000s, the government, through their Ministry of Information,
Right.
they've owned and directly controlled every single media outlet in the entire country.
Every single one.
Every single one. No exceptions. All the newspapers. You've got Aladisa, Hadas Eritrea, and those are actually the only printed news you can get legally in Eritrea.
Oh, well.
Then there's Eritrea Profile, that's in English, and Eritrea Hadas. And it's not just print radio stations, too, like Radio Bana, Radio Zara,
Right.
Dimsiafa. All the TV channels, Eri TV1, Eri TV2, all of them.
So it's impossible to, pick up a newspaper that's not government-run or listen to a private radio station.
Exactly. It just doesn't exist. Private or foreign ownership.
Yeah.
Totally forbidden. And because of this monopoly, state media,
Right.
it's basically a PR machine for the government, and especially for President Isaias Afwerki.
Okay.
It's all, positive spin about what they're doing and zero critical thinking allowed. No different viewpoints, nothing.
So it's like this very carefully constructed bubble of only what the government wants people to see.
Exactly. A very controlled narrative.
But how do they actually stop anyone else from speaking up and reaching people? How do they make sure nobody breaks that bubble?
Well, on top of owning everything, they control all the printing presses and how things are distributed. So if you can't print your ideas or spread them around, you're basically silenced, right? This control over the actual infrastructure is key to keeping everyone on the same page. And because of that, everything from all these state-controlled platforms, it's all the same.
Right.
Very little variety in what you see or hear.
It all comes from the same source.
Exactly. And to make all this extra official, they have laws too.
Okay, so what do the laws actually say about all of this?
So back in 1996, they had this press law. It outlawed any private broadcast media like radio or TV.
Right.
And it made every outlet get a license from the government.
A permission slip, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But then things got even stricter in 2001. They completely banned all private media.
Wow.
And here's the real kicker. Even stuff within the state media, anything they want to publish, they need government approval before it can go out.
Really? So every article, every radio script, everything has to get a stamp of approval first.
Exactly. It's censorship before anything even gets a chance.
Wow.
So with this legal stranglehold, it's no wonder that independent journalists...
If they even exist at this point.
Right. They face huge risks.
For sure. With all this control, it must be incredibly dangerous to even think about being an independent journalist in Eritrea. What are the actual threats they face?
You're absolutely right. With this level of state control, independent journalism just can't survive inside Eritrea.
Yeah.
And the consequences for trying are devastating. 2001, there was this huge crackdown.
Yeah.
At least 18 journalists were arrested, and they're still in prison today.
Wow. No trial or anything.
Nope. No formal charges, nothing. That one event basically wiped out any chance of independent press in Eritrea.
And that void has just continued all these years.
Yep, still going on.
That's a really long time to be held without any legal process.
Right.
And our sources, they point out one particularly sad case.
Yeah, the wife of an editor who was arrested back on September 21st, 2001. She hasn't seen him since.
It's been over 20 years. That's
It was
unbelievable.
heartbreaking. And the government, their spokesperson, they've tried to justify it.
What do they say?
They claim some of these journalists were actually working for Ethiopia.
Like spies or something?
Yeah, something like that. But honestly, it sounds more like an excuse to silence dissent than a genuine security threat.
Yeah, just a way to get rid of anyone asking tough questions.
Pretty much.
But there was this period, right, after that 1996 press law where private print media was allowed. What happened during that time?
Right. After that law, a handful of private newspapers and magazines popped up, maybe a dozen or so.
Okay.
And they even managed to keep going during that intense border war with Ethiopia.
Oh, wow. So they were publishing right in the middle of a war.
Yeah, they were. But it didn't last long. After the war ended in 2000, they tried to, be more free with their reporting.
Push the boundaries a little.
Yeah, exactly. And the government clamped down hard, banned everything in September 2001. No more independent print media.
It's just like that.
Just like that. And there's this one chilling story in an article about a young Eritrean journalist right after all those arrests happened.
Oh, what happened to them?
Well, just hearing about those other journalists being arrested, they went straight into hiding. Yeah, they were terrified. At first, too scared to even leave the country.
I can only imagine.
But eventually, some family helped them disappear. It really shows you the level of fear, the danger for anyone even associated with independent media.
That's intense. And there's also the case of Metho's Hubtape.
Right? Yeah, Matjaros Haptep, he was the editor of Mekele.
Okay.
He was arrested and sent to a work camp, and it was specifically because of his journalism.
So it's not just fear, there are real consequences.
Definitely. These stories really highlight how personal and severe those consequences can be if you challenge the government's monopoly.
It's a bleak picture.
Yeah.
So if you're in Eritrea, where do you even turn to get a different perspective? It seems like alternative media stuff coming from outside the country becomes super important, right? Especially from the diaspora.
Exactly. When the state controls the story so tightly, anything coming from outside, especially from Eritreans living elsewhere, that becomes a lifeline for different information. And one big development was Asina TV. They started broadcasting into Eritrea via satellite in 2019. Okay.
And that was a first. The first opposition satellite TV channel to actually reach people inside Eritrea.
Wow. That's a pretty big deal. And our notes mention it's funded in a pretty unique way, right?
Yeah, Asina TV runs on donations from Eritreans living abroad. They give monthly to keep it going.
So they're directly supporting this effort to get information back into Eritrea.
Exactly, bypassing all that state-controlled media. And after Asina TV launched, you know what happened? People in Eritrea started buying satellite dishes like crazy.
Really?
Yeah, they wanted to see this different perspective.
Yeah.
It shows you, even in a place like that, people crave the truth.
That's amazing. So were there reports that people were actually watching these broadcasts?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Reports came in from all over Eritrea, west, south, north, even the capital, Asmara.
Wow.
People were watching, and they were excited about it, relieved to have something different to watch.
That makes sense.
There's even this story about a teenager in Asmara who said that no one is really watching ERI TV anymore.
People would watch Asena's hourly broadcasts, which were pretty short,
Right.
and then switch over to Ethiopian channels once those were done.
So they're taking whatever they can get.
Exactly. It just shows you how hungry people are for different voices.
Yeah, it's a powerful image. And they didn't just stick to regular news, did they? I remember something about a specific campaign they were covering.
You're right. They did a lot of reporting on the Enough campaign.
Remind me, what was that about?
It was all about pushing for political and social change in Eritrea.
Okay.
And because it was covered by an independent channel, it actually started changing people's minds about opposition groups who were always painted as the bad guys by the state media.
Oh, interesting.
And they even held online seminars and discussions about the journalists still stuck in prison.
Keeping that issue in the spotlight.
Exactly. So the government, they couldn't just ignore this. What did they do about Asena TV?
Yeah, how did they react to all this?
Well, their reaction showed that Asena TV was hitting a nerve. They started trying to scare people into not watching it, probably through intimidation and propaganda.
Classic tactics.
Right. And they even tried to jam the satellite signals to disrupt the broadcasts.
Wow. Going to a lot of effort to stop people from watching.
They knew that Asena was reaching people and had the power to change things. It was a threat to their control. And it wasn't just Asena. Erisat, another opposition satellite TV channel, they announced their launch around the same time in 2019.
No, this is becoming a trend.
Yeah, the diaspora was stepping up to break the government's hold on information.
That's encouraging. So let's talk about the internet. These days, it's how so many people get their news and information. What's the situation like in Eritrea?
Well, if you look at the numbers from around 2012, 2013, internet access in Eritrea was extremely limited.
Good.
Very few people per 100 had access, per 1,000, and almost no one had fixed broadband. It was clear that the internet was being heavily restricted.
And how does that lack of access play into the government's overall strategy of controlling information?
It's a crucial part of it. See, they already control newspapers, radio, and TV. So by restricting the internet, they're shutting down another way for people to get different information.
It's like a double lock on the door.
Exactly. It creates this near total information blackout where the state is the only source. And the crazy thing is, while this is happening, the rest of North Africa is going in the opposite direction. Our sources talk about how digital media is actually booming in other parts of North Africa.
So Eritrea is like an island in that sense.
Exactly. Like in Egypt, their digital media market is growing rapidly. Morocco is trying to get everyone online. Tunisia's become a digital leader with tons of people on the internet.
Wow, so Eritrea is really falling behind.
Big time. And it's all because they're stuck in this system where the government controls everything you see and hear.
It's a pretty stark contrast. And while our sources don't get into the specifics of exactly how they control the internet there, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
Totally. They might not tell us exactly what firewalls they're using or how they're monitoring people, but with the level of control they have over everything else, it's a safe bet that the internet's tightly controlled too.
Yeah, it would be naive to think otherwise. To put all this into perspective, the report talks about the general challenges faced by journalists across North Africa. How does that help us understand Eritrea's situation, which seems particularly bad?
So they talk about things like journalists having trouble getting information, safety concerns, money problems, restrictive laws, and the whole issue of disinformation.
Right, common problems for journalists.
Exactly. But in Eritrea, these problems are way worse, like exponentially worse. What might be a hurdle in another country could be life-threatening in Eritrea because of the government's total control and how brutally they silence anyone who disagrees with them.
It's like a completely different level of risk.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, can you sum up the main takeaways about media control and the situation for journalists in Eritrea, especially regarding the internet? The main takeaway is pretty clear. Eritrea's government has an incredibly tight grip on all forms of media. They silence anyone who tries to report independently and imprison journalists who dare to challenge them.
Yeah.
But despite that, we're seeing the rise of alternative media, especially channels like Asana TV, broadcasting from outside the country. They're making a difference, showing that Eritreans want access to information and are willing to fight for it.
It's a spark of hope in a difficult situation.
For sure. And the fact that internet access is so limited just highlights how far the government will go to control the narrative.
It's a sobering look at how fragile freedom of information can be. So for everyone listening, people who want to understand these complex issues, this deep dive has hopefully shed some light on the challenges to press freedom in Eritrea and how it connects to the bigger picture of access to information globally.
Exactly. And it makes you think about the role of technology and the power of people living outside a country to challenge these kinds of authoritarian regimes.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that the fight for information is global.
Absolutely. And it raises a big question. What happens to a society when the government controls all the information, when there are no dissenting voices allowed? That's something worth thinking about.
Definitely something to ponder.
It really is.